Hey guys, welcome back again to Rebuild Reality. Now, today what we're going to talk about is this thing called the 0 point. And I was actually told about this. I guess a lot of people call it downloads or whatever. It's just that natural communication we all have. It's just that the more your awareness grows, the more that grows. You realize, first of all, of course, that a conversation is actually happening and that you can ask a question and receive an answer. And that's exactly what I did in this instance. There was a book that I had read by a guy named Thurman Fleet, that some of you may have heard of. I think it came out in the 1950s or something. Basically, it's a book called Rays of the Dawn, The Natural Laws of the Body, Mind, and Soul. And in that book, on the chapter on fear that he did, there was this statement. He said, "Once we see opposites in their true light, we rise above them and harmonize ourselves with the divine. And then destructive emotions are no longer capable of disturbing our consciousness." So once we see the opposites in their true light, we rise above them and harmonize ourselves with the divine. And then destructive emotions no longer are capable of disturbing our consciousness. However, he doesn't say how a person could go about seeing opposites in their true light, or if he ever accomplished that himself. So, of course, I asked the question, well, how do we see opposites in their true light so that we can harmonize with the divine within us and then get rid of those pesky emotions and stuff, not have them rule us all the time? So now the information that came back to me was about the 0 point. They're like, you need to go to the 0 point. Now, what happens is when something comes in like this, first thing I do is I'm like, okay, is that here? Is that here in 3D? Does anyone else know about this? Has anyone ever heard about this? So I will look it up. And like, for example, I did this, I think about 3 months ago or so, when they told me that there are eye drops that can correct your vision back to 2020 again, or just to 2020 if you've never had that. If you're wearing glasses or contacts, and as opposed to having laser surgery, you could literally just put eye drops in your eyes and have them correct your eyesight. So I looked it up. Sure enough, there it was. There was a company who had invented it and were looking for distributors of it, which I'm sure probably every distributor out there is going to be like, yeah, that's going to be a massively big selling product, isn't it? So yeah, that was there. So same thing with this. I looked and I'm like, okay, is it here in the world? And the one thing I found about it was actually a quantum physics thing that I hadn't heard about up to that point, called 0 point energy. Now, in line about what it says about 0 point energy is that it describes a microscopic world of the atom, where in each cubic centimeter of empty space, and atoms are basically almost entirely empty space, there contains an enormous amount of energy, because it exists at the absolute 0 point, which for them is the temperature scale. So 0 degrees is the 0 point for cells, where I guess that you can perhaps observe them, or that they're at their most potent force. But basically it says basically all this energy, this enormous energy that is inside of a cell at the 0 point, is associated with all of nature's entire field of force, including the Earth's electromagnetic field. Now, obviously, this is a tremendous amount of energy inside of every single cell. So they were like telling me about, so that was like something, right? So that was, I'm like, okay, well, there's this term, and it is associated with the power, the force of all of nature, right? So that's what they were trying to kind of help point out as well, because I know I'm going to look it up, And they're like, this is the power within, right? So here in duality, we've got the 3D world of doing. Do. I'm going to do stuff to make stuff happen. And then we have the world of being, which is the 3D mind is like, it's boring. Nothing happens there. It doesn't really like that world because it doesn't know anything about it. It doesn't spend time there, really. It just knows the world of doing. So now, of course, there are people that go and get into meditation and stuff a lot. And this is the kind of thing that we really want to begin to start doing. And it's not that you have to sit there cross-legged and everything, in the lotus pose. It's just a stopping. Just stopping. And simply by closing your eyes, you automatically unplug 70% of yourself from 3D, because your eyesight makes up for 70% of your perception. So you've already pulled yourself out of 3D 70% just by closing your eyes. So like I said, the mind's like, this is boring. Let's do something else, But if you persist and you stay there, where the mind, the 3D mind's like, nothing's going to happen. We're wasting time. You need to do all this stuff because that's what all it knows is that world. But in here, in the world of being, which can be behind your closed eyes, it can just be where you're just contemplating something. You've just stopped and suddenly you're aware of here, right here and now. You're aware of your hand. You're aware of the sun. You're aware of the leaves on the trees. You're aware of the ground in front of you. You're aware of the chair. You're here. You're here and now, which of course is the only place that really exists. So this is where there are no opposites. This is where we can begin to turn off duality, because we start to unplug ourselves from it. And because I spent a lot of time, several years doing QHHT, which for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's a thing called quantum healing hypnosis technique, where you have people in hypnosis and you do it for hours. A lot of people do 2.5 hour sessions. I'd have people in hypnosis for at least 2.5 hours, sometimes 3.5 to 4 hours, which they were like, it's hard to orient people back to 3D, It's like, well, then to me, that's okay. It may take them a while, but it lets you know, holy moly, there is a lot more than I thought there was in here. So now when people would come out of that long of a hypnotic state, hypnosis, well, what is hypnosis? It's just being really relaxed, right? Just being really relaxed and kind of melting down into that place, and you go into your imagination behind your closed eyes. And what first seems like there's nothing there, all this stuff begins to appear. Suddenly you start to turn on all your other senses, which are way more than your measly 5, 3D senses. There are all kinds of senses that work in there. And this is really more of your true reality, more of the true you, because your imagination, you're all imagination, right? And then now you're going into the world of your imagination without being hindered by the physical world of what is you can and you can't do, all these laws and all these limits. Because in here, there are no laws. There are no limits. There is no duality. There's no light and dark. There's no off and on. There's no here and there. There's no up and down. There's no left and right. There's no good and bad, man and woman. It's just all one thing. You're turning off that perception of duality inside of here. And because it's the place that is the true reality, well, this is where things show up. And if you go in and you make this a practice, you solidify those things way faster. Because here's the paradox, that the slower you go, the faster things happen. So the more you slow down, the more you come into this place of here and now, which is the only true reality, here and now. Everything else, our mind's constantly in the future or the past. That's why it doesn't see things. That's why it misses everything. Because it's not happening in the future or the past. It's happening now. Your manifestation is happening now. Right here and now. And so when you go into that world of being instead of doing, you're actually going to be creating way, way faster. Why? Because we're constantly sending out these waves. So when we think all the time, instead of like stopping and being quiet, it sends out waves of energy. So if we're constantly making waves, we're muddying the water. One, we can't see what's really going on because we're lost in our heads, you know. And two, you're not in receiving mode. How can anything, when you keep pushing energy out, you keep asking, how can you ever receive? How can anything ever appear when you're like, I'm in this thing where I don't have it, so I'm going to keep asking? Well, that's an affirmation that I still don't have it. I still don't have it. That's why I keep asking. As opposed to being still. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that it's here. Because this is where it's going to show up. Here and now. So that's why we want to start slowing down. That's why we want to start calming the thoughts. Calming the water. Making a place for our manifestation, our creation to actually land. You know? And so if you want it to come faster, go slower. Be here now. Be in that awareness that, oh, I'm going to just let it come forth because everything's here. Everything is here right now, right? We understand. I think if you've been watching my videos, we understand, and we constantly got to remind ourselves, oh yeah, my eyes don't see. Your eyes do not see reality. You'll look it up. Look it up freaking right now. You stop the video, you go look it up. Do our eyes see reality? First thing, AI overview, AI summary comes up of making a summary out of all the information on the internet. What's the first thing it says? When you ask the question, do our eyes see reality? No. No, your eyes do not see reality. Our senses are not telling us about reality. They're telling us about our expectations of reality, which is why we got to let all those our old habits, our old beliefs, our old expectations take a hike, you know, because we want to clear the decks by being here now and getting to our 0 point. Now, there are different levels of the 0 point. And going in and being able to discover them can be quite an eye-opening thing, because you get into there and one of the first things you start to realize is that there are other doorways to other realities, other places, which are of course infinite. So there are other options, but there is also, as Neville Goddard discovered, and he spoke about this a number of times, a place where you can get to where you can stop the 3D reality. And he did this, I don't know how many times he did it, but obviously once he learned about it, he probably did it a number of times, because I know he spoke about it more than once. And where he literally stopped the world. He stopped everything moving. People stopped in their tracks. Cars, trains, birds flying in the air, everything stopped. He realized he could turn the world off and on again. Now, I don't know if he ever got there. And maybe that's when he left the world. But there is a step beyond this, beyond what he got to. And this is what they were telling me about when they told me about the 0 point. And so basically what it is it's not just, there's a place within there, within the world of being, where you don't just stop reality. You can turn it off. You can turn off the 3D hologram projection. And literally the whole thing collapses. And you've probably seen what a hologram looks like, you know, on movies, TV, stuff like that. Well, literally that whole projection that seems to be this whole world literally just goes whoop, and collapses. And there's no more projection coming from our mind making that up. We go back into the true reality. So it's in there. It's in there. And we begin to get to these places when we start to spend time there in the world of being, where there is no more duality. Because there's no more left and right. When you close your eyes, there's no more left and right. There's no more on and off. There's no more here and there. You know, there's no more right and wrong, man, woman. There's none of it. It's all gone. And just by closing your eyes, you have already unplugged yourself 70% from the 3D reality. You've already made a big step in pulling yourself out of the world of this play and back into the true world of your being. Because your eyesight makes up for 70% of your perception. So if you go in and you're there long enough, amazing things start to happen. Now, in the sessions that I did with the QHHT hypnosis, might have people in hypnosis for so long, healing, not really a problem. Not really a problem, especially when the person had this belief in this thing. I had healings happen all the time. All the time. All kinds of things would happen. It would just, you'd hear bones, you know, going back into place, you know, spines straightening. And you'd see all these patterns and just all this information would just come out because you're there. You're getting used to staying there and seeing what's there. And then all your senses from there begin to plug back in. You know, you begin to be like, oh yeah, there's this, now there's that. You're leaving behind your 5 measly senses and you're plugging into all your non-physical senses, because these are the same world, really. There's just the manifested part of it and the unmanifested part of it in our perception. But it's nothing more than a perception, than an assumption that this is a physical, solid reality, blah, 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 when it's just not, you know? So, getting to that place where you slow down, and then things start to happen faster, where you start to be here and now, where everything, this is the first place it's going to pop up. That reality is going to appear here first, you know? So, yeah, spending time there, getting used to it, valuing it more. Because the 3D mind, like I said, is like bored. It's like, I don't put any value on that. It still has this illusion that it's still absolutely positive that this is real. And, you know, and I have people all the time who are like, you know, well, I saw this thing, or I saw these pictures, or I saw this in my SPs with somebody else, or I saw this situation happen, or I saw this thing. I'm like, your eyes don't see anything. And we're going to go into this even more in the next video or two. It's not just your eyes. It's not just your eyes. There is proof across the board. Your hearing, your taste, your smelling, your all of it. When you really look at it, you know, and measure it, none of it's actually happening. Now it's coming out. Now it's all coming out. The information is out there that this is not true reality. So make it a point to spend some time out of the world of duality, which is 3D. That's the world of duality, where you go into that place where there is no duality, where the true reality comes more and more into focus. And then you see the reality of that. And then this starts to fade away. Because where are you looking? Your focus, right? It's all about your focus. So be here and now. In that inner world, start turning off duality, you know? And when you do, everything is going to appear much, much faster for you. All the things that you want are going to come into focus when you calm the waters, when you start putting yourself into that receiving mode. You're here and now. You're getting more to your 0 point. And maybe in there, you're going to find how to turn it off. Or perhaps stop the whole thing altogether. You know, you do what Neville did, go a step farther. Who knows what you're going to find? The closer you get to the 0 point. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys out. Let me know what you think. And thanks you guys for being here once again with me on Rebuild Reality. If you need my help, you know where to find me in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I'm going to see you guys here next time on Rebuild Reality.